Okay, let me say okay. Oh, anyway, if I don't say okay, then that's still going to record, right?
I'm already recording. I can stop it, I think.
No, 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 no. I don't want to. I just want to make sure it was recording. Anyway, as I said, this is a figure that shows how many trial arms are comparing each of these 6 treatments. Um, this is an unusual type of network diagram. I'll show you more commonly what they do or what they look like. So we're looking at Bayesian network meta-analyses. Last week we looked at the frequentist version of a network meta-analysis. And they've been around since the early 2000s, which isn't that long ago. We're used to meta-analyses comparing a treatment within treatments, comparing a treatment to a placebo. That's kind of the standard. We talked about that last week a little bit. That's called direct evidence meta-analysis, where you're comparing within the same study, you're comparing things, and then you stack those studies in a forest plot, and you list the studies down the left-hand column, and you look at how many studies did the treatment beat the placebo or the control group. And then at the bottom, you have a subtotal, or you have a summary of all the studies. And that, in this case, it looks like there's too much heterogeneity between the studies to really summarize it in one diamond-shaped thing, but they're doing it. And this is the common practice. And each one of these boxes or blocks in this, which represents the central tendency of the study, where the controls compare to the treatment, they're weighted, usually by sample size. So some of them are bigger than others, thicker boxes. And since we're dealing with risk ratios, 1 is the center where there is no difference in treatment effects. And again, the summary is at the bottom. If the 95% confidence interval crosses that middle line, that brings into question whether that was actually a significant effect size in that study with the treatment over the control group. That's probably a review for everybody, but oh yeah, our telephone. Anyway, wait for my wife to answer. The important question of the best treatment. We talked, I just told you the story a minute ago that pharma companies aren't very interested in walking for 30 minutes a day. So smoking cessation, this was a job I had when I started out at UA, and my boss came and said, well, what's the best treatment for smoking cessation? Group therapy and support, physicians, I call it confrontation, nurse or physician's assistant, scary literature, information. And it turns out that there's each one of these, there are studies where they're compared to a control group. So I just blended them together in a Bayesian mixed treatment comparisons method, which is the predecessor of what the network meta-analysis is, and found that the physician carries the most weight in getting people to stop smoking for at least 1 year. So it's a credibility factor. And then the support groups, some of them were good, some were bad. Some were effective and some were ineffective, I should say. Ineffective ones, or the effective ones, I would assume, had people who really understood how to motivate quitting. So the indirect method works sort of like this. You've got study one has a treatment one and a control one. Control one might be treatments withheld. Control one might be a placebo. Control two might be another version of not getting a treatment. So anyway, if I wanted to compare treatment one and treatment two, I could use an indirect method. If I pool the control groups, they are the same control groups. And this is important because there's all kinds of control groups. Then you see, if you pool those, you can get a sense of how treatment one compares to treatment two by this indirect method. And this is a comparison of treatment one to control two, which could be waiting list control or could be a placebo. Anyway, you can do all kinds of steps like this. And the idea of the figure that I showed you at the beginning is that it's a network, these things are all connected to each other. And you can, I'm going to skip the Markov chain Monte Carlo comment. Let's to go to that. This is how it works. Brian, did you have a question or something?
No, I was agreeing with you about the MCMC. It's pretty involved.
Yeah. Random walks. This is what an MCMC might tackle. I've done stuff like this. Takes overnight to run on some computers. And anyway, the Bayesian modeling, as we all know by now, although we may not have it metabolized yet, we're going to get prior probabilities and posterior probabilities from our analyses. And that's seen as an advantage for a couple of reasons. One is that the prior probability can be adjusted to what the previous literature says. So we're not always testing against a placebo as if we don't know what the treatment, how much better the treatment is than the placebo. And this is what makes people nervous, I think. The placebos get better over time too. It's just people learn about them, or the morphogenetic field, gets saturated. Anyway. So people get better on placebos, and that's important to remember because we don't test how effective treatments are, placebos are. I'll show you some, I don't want to get into this either, but the damn, by damn, I mean cursed R, there's what, 5 or 10 programs now for network meta-analysis on R. And those of us that remember BMDP, I don't know, AJ, do you remember BMDP from the 70s?
1,000 years ago, yeah.
Anyway,
Unfortunately, so do I.
Yeah, me too.
I thought it was awful because there were 10 different programs that did ANOVAs, and so each one had a little bit different emphasis. It just didn't make life easy. And when R came out, I thought, aha, but now it's got over 2,000 programs in R, and many of them do the same thing. So with a little different approach. So the steps that are involved are specifying a model, and the stuff I've sent you, I'll run it. If you guys want to run it, you can. If you don't, that's fine. I understand. But there's several different features to it. I think the most important is at the top there, regression equation with beta weights. It's going to do a regression, just like you would with a GLM or a linear model kind of thing. And in this case, let's see, the beta for the study plus the treatment plus the time plus a beta NH is the natural history, which I carefully modeled to make sure that the formula covered pretty well what you'd expect. And this is acute pain. Acute pain tends to resolve on its own within 6 weeks. About 90% of it does. So I built that into this thing. And then Y, whatever Y is, the outcome, in this case, it's the probability of getting better, is the normally distributed by the regression equation up top, and then this. My pointer doesn't seem to work on the slide. So anyway, the top paragraph, if you will, for I in 1 to N down to the curly brace. And then the treatments on the second paragraph. But what I'm getting at is that sometimes we know what's going to happen. In our case, we know that 90% of the pain's 90% of acute pain will be better within 6 weeks. And so we can build that in. We can say our prior is that. AJ and I have had some conversations around this. Why didn't I do that, 14 years ago? Because I didn't really know how to do it. But instead of beta time equals D norm 0 tau time, that's what's called an uninformative prior. It's a 0 mean, and tau is a measure of heterogeneity or variance, depending on, they're kind of the same thing if you think about it. So all the precision parameters below are uninformative priors. They're all mean of who cares by a variance of not interested, and we're going to let the model sort that out. And once we would do that, then we have the priors for the next batch of research that comes in. And I'm getting into maybe the weeds a bit too much here, but this is the list of variables that we'll test, initial values or priors, and then you run these JAGS models in sample posterior. And anyway, you end up with this. This is the top paragraph from through row 12 for the log odds of the findings of the posterior probabilities, and 15 through 26 are those log odds converted to probabilities. So I put in the names of the treatments there: control group, exercise, medical management, modality, self-care, and spinal manipulative therapy. And you can see the probabilities. A probability of 0.5 is a coin flip. It's not anything to pay attention to. AJ, you'll see that spinal manipulation is 0.527, so it's better than any of the other treatments. I might be admitted to the good graces of the profession. He's always teasing me about that. But anyway, so the natural history in this model, beta NH, has a mean of 0.491. Again, a coin flip. Natural history is not important. Time is sort of like natural history, except it's the actual time that these observations were taken, not a projected natural history based on a formula. Well, it's no good either. It's not coming up with anything. So that's how you read that. But if you look up in the log odds and you look at the CI lower, column G, and column H, CI upper, that's a 95% confidence interval. If that crosses 0, then you've got the situation where it's questionable as to whether you've got a real treatment effect or not. In our case, we don't have to worry about it because we don't really have one, except maybe spinal manipulation on row 23. We'll go up to row 9 and look at it, and it crosses 0. There's only one that doesn't, I believe, and that's the time variable, which is in column G, it's minus 0.028, and in column H, it's minus 0.006. Now, if we jump down, that's just a little under 0.5. So it's a solid estimate of something that doesn't work, I guess, is what we could say. Or we're not confident that the estimate's good, but it's coin flip. The ESS, yeah.
Columns 1 through 12, how is it different than columns 15 through 26?
Those are rows, first of all, Mindy.
Thank you.
Yeah, the top part, the log odds, and the bottom part, 15 through 26, are those log odds converted to probabilities, because we think better in terms
Got
of
it.
probabilities. Yeah. And
Thank
the
you.
formula is 1 divided by parentheses 1 plus exponentiated thing up above, negative. So yeah, I found that yeah, you just almost have to convert them to probabilities. I've worked with log odds now enough. I get the hang of it, but it's still easier. So if you look at row 10, 11, and 12, you see these numbers, especially the bottom one, tau treat. That's the heterogeneity of the treatments. They're quite different. They're nastily different, if that's an adverb. So how you deal with that is, so far, is kind of, I'm not so clear on, but you got to say they're nothing alike, and they really claim different territory in these regressions. The column number I, which is ESS, that's effective sample size. And the simulations that I did on these were, well, a couple 100,000. And so what this column tells us is that they're pretty good estimates, because they all came out over 100,000 or thereabouts. The first one, natural history, didn't. But I've run some of these 6 million times, and then you get 5 on one of the rows. Now, something's wrong there. And then you can have another column about, it's a Gelman statistic that shows that everything merged, and you've got a good estimate. What I have a hard time with is that you have maybe a strong posterior probability, and then you have a low ESS, or you're crossing 0 with the log odds. So I'm working actually with artificial intelligence, no offense, please, to help me sort out how to be talking to you, to help me sort out how to interpret these things, because there's all these different what do you call it, measures or gauges, diagnostics of how your stuff's turning out. And so, and then last week I showed a net graph that was pretty thin, because it was only 5 studies and 7 treatments, or vice versa, I forget which. But in this case, that I didn't have it put numbers on it, but SMT2 modalities, which are physiotherapy modalities like heat, electrical stim, ultrasound, therapeutic ultrasound. That's the strongest. That's the most comparisons between those two arms. And then medical with SMTs, pretty common, or second most common. And SMT2 control, which again, there's various gradients of control. There are no waiting list control groups within acute pain because I think there's ethical considerations there. Self-care is compared to exercise, maybe only once because of the thinness of the line you can see. Anyway, that's a net graph. Any comments or questions on that? You can see exercises and compared to medical anywhere in my studies. Okay. Well, if you want to see some of this in action, any questions, or would anyone, how interested might you be in? Are you with me?
Watching.
You know, I'm interested, but
Yeah, Brian is. But Brian and I are weird, so that's.
I'm interested, but as you know, I don't do R, so
I know, yeah. And I'm going to show you something here that's, you better put your sunglasses on. Let's see. Are you still seeing this screen over here?
yeah.
Mhm. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So this is the database that I've been building up. It's an Excel sheet, actually. I've been building it for almost 20 years. It's precious. And I use a lot of color and I keep refining it. I find little errors in it. But each one of these rows represents a treatment arm. And here, for example, these two is one study and two treatment arms on the same study, control and spinal manipulation. And I've got 97 studies. Some of the studies have 5 arms on them. I've got 516 arms, and arms within studies, and then pre-scores and post-scores, the percentage of improvement, which converts to probability, roughly to probability. Anyway, let's see, just. I sent everybody this, but I don't expect you to care as much about it as I do. But gee. So I'm creating CSV file, and of course it complains about it. And then here, if anybody wants to do this with me, make sure it reads it in, and it does. And if you want to skip a bunch of steps, go to Data, Prep 2. And just grab everything above it, highlight it, in other words, and run it. It only takes a second, couple seconds. And now it's ready to do the modeling. Let me see, I'll make this bigger. Took me a while to sort out these models, but this is the model. It's written in a code called WinBugs. If you've ever experimented with that, that's what this is. There's the data list. Initial values. And then run this JAGS thing. I'm going to take 10,000 samples from that. I'm going to run it again, take 50,000 samples from this. And I kind of treat this like a cookbook. I don't really know why I have to do all that, but I should learn it over a while after a while. I'm just going to show you what the table looks like when it comes out. So this is kind of a nice read because the negatives are red and the positives are white. So you can see which ones are crossing the zero. And the spinal manipulation is number 6 here. And it's just under 0. And everything else is kind of farther under 0. So it looks pretty solid. If I took more samples, which I have, it doesn't really help it that much. You know, pull away from 0 or make a smaller spread. And the summary table, I write to a CSV file, then that's what you saw. I opened it up. I'll just do the Gelman quotients here. It's done already. Okay. All right, so here are the treatments. There's natural history 1.00000. What I know about the Gelman quotient, I don't know how he derived it, but the closer you get to 1 and the more zeros you have behind the 1, the better. These 0.99 ones, I'm not so sure. And that includes the spinal manipulation one. But if you get something that's like 1.01, it's not a good mix. It's not the Markov chain Monte Carlo has not done a good job of isolating the effect or the posterior probability. So that I add to the final table before submitting it for publication. So anyway, that's at the speed of light, and then we're done. So any comments or questions?
Just a comment on the nature of the research. Evidently, in global health systems, there are countries like Germany who have much more emphasis on prevention rather than treatment.
Mm-hmm.
So not to get it in the first place, you know?
Yeah.
And so this emphasis on the placebo and self-care and exercise is really extraordinary and very important.
I think so. I think there's well, my first paper, even though I used like I said, a cobbled together method. It was adopted by NICE, the UK National Institute of whatever it is, with as evidence that doctors don't need to, first of all, do surgery on acute low back pain. Secondly, maybe just provide patients comfort, but for a few weeks until it gets a little better. And, the more you treat it, the more they become part of the system and more dependent on that system for care. Lee Seacrest and I had a good conversation once, that low back pain was kind of a psychotic break of the soma, because it's so debilitating and so scary, acute low back pain, especially the kind that you get when you're in your 30s and you're a painter or you're a carpenter or something. And I remember I had a guy hospitalized. He was in such bad shape, and he had 5 kids, and they're crawling all over him. And it came into my office, and I thought, well, this guy needs some rest, and he's not going to get it at home. So, but yeah, it looks like your life's coming apart, and you think that this I'm always going to experience this. So, yeah, I got really interested in this when I learned about it. With the right combinations of studies, you might, without ever collecting data, you might come up with some pretty good conclusions and inferences. And these people, the network meta-analysis people, you can make these models as complex as you want. I used, this is a simple model. And let's see here. I used a hierarchical model where I took out the effects of natural history and time and control, because control groups have an interface with a provider in most cases, especially in acute pain. So if I took those out first, then actually that spinal manipulation effect goes away. Let's see. But anyway, you can make it as elegant as you want, but it takes more tweaking then, and you might think that it's less generalizable, or less, what's the word, less like reality. Verisimilitude. So everything I gave you is my data that I put together for 20 years. So be careful with it.
Yeah.
We promise.
And I'm also thinking the World Health Organization, I think in 2022, that recently started, of course, the reporting is spotty across countries, but they started talking not only about longevity, but healthy life years.
Oh.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, that's like the quality of life years that they've been using in Great Britain for a long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So late.
Oh, hi, Michael.
Hi, Michael. I gave a young friend a ride to the airport.
Oh,
Yeah, summer vacation starts.
It's gonna just.
Did
And
you
I
write
do,
this code yourself?
yeah, I did this myself. Taught
Oh,
myself.
It's a lot of calculation.
The other thing I did was I do an acute model and a chronic model because acute pain is different. The prognosis, of course, is different, but the mechanisms of pain seem to be different. There's changes in the tissue, harder to get rid of, chronic. That's why it's chronic. I was just trying to show you, trying to find my most complex model. But anyway, that I forgot I did that this many, but anyway, like I said, it can be hierarchical, and then you can throw in covariates. And I have one that's I call a kitchen sink here. But the bigger the model, the more that can go wrong. And let's see. Well, if anyone's interested in pursuing this further, on back channel, I'm happy to talk to you about it because I'm interested in it. And like B said, maybe there's some applications in maintaining health, but there's also I guess possibilities of getting data from other countries to blend in with these data. And then last week, both AJ and Mindy mentioned synthetic correlations, right, AJ?
Correlation matrix.
What are they called?
Synthetic correlation matrix.
There's, yeah.
Matrix.
Individual ones are not synthetic. The correlation matrix is synthetic.
Okay.
I did a literature search on it and came up with exactly what I was not looking for. I was looking for matrices that were built up from existing data. And what I found was studies that were 100% synthetic, which is wonderful, but not what I was looking for. There may be a key.
Go ahead.
Is there a keyword that I hadn't thought of?
For the matrix, from matrices?
Yeah, to find a matrix that is built from real studies, like what you're doing.
I don't know. AJ, do you know?
No?
Well, I'm going to look into it, but I don't know anything about it. So I'm not really laying my hands on the piece I was wanting to find, but you get the idea. You can build this model as big as you
Wow.
want. I think it's might be less generalizable. You get out there like that, but the proponents of network meta-analysis just just sort of think it's, you know, like how people are about IRT. You're either a Roche person or an IRT person. So anyway, I guess we could stop the recording unless,
I have many questions, but I'll stop the recording and then ask questions.
no, I should ask the question while the recording's on so other people can benefit from your questions.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, if you go way back to the diagram with thick lines and thin lines, so way before R.
Mhm.
Yes. Okay, I was trying to explain to somebody how you could compare, for instance, exercise and medical when no one has run those a study to do that.
Right.
And I fell short beyond going, oh well, you just analyzed it correctly and it tells you.
Yeah. And I could set the model up to go after that specific question.
So if you could talk about the how and why,
Hmm.
that would be cool. I mean, if you want to talk about
What?
right,
Well, the indirect method, which is what this indirect evidence, by indirect evidence, you would compare exercise to medical through SMT. You know, that's one route. It's like a puzzle. You can go any route. The thickest one, I think, is the best evidence, but exercise to SMT and then medical. But you could go, there's probably 10 different ways, you could do that. The idea is to pool the stuff that isn't that is a direct evidence, and then check it against the thing you're interested in comparing it to. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
Since I collected studies around SMT, I don't have an exercise versus medical direct comparison. They're out there, I'm pretty sure, especially for chronic pain. I know they're out there. So it's interesting, I have built into this diagram a kind of bias. Everything has to be related to SMT. If I had thrown acupuncture in, which I've been considering for acute pain, it would be another node on this. The lines are called edges, and the circles, the treatments are called nodes. It'd be another node. It would be compared to control groups, and could indirectly be compared to SMT for back pain, acute back pain in this diagram. So
could you go even, you have another one that I think 2 slides before this that is even more simplified. Maybe I was asking in the wrong direction. It's
another net graph like this?
no, it's you have like 5 treatments, and then you have the line.
Is that it?
No, it's and then you have the comparison circled.
I don't know. Is this it?
How about that one?
And
Number 5.
I just picked this up off the internet. I don't know what they're comparing, but there are 6
Oh,
different treatments.
The could you click on number 5? Slide number 5. 6,
The same.
okay, all right, try 9.
Oh, I know what you're doing. Yeah, this, right?
Yeah, um. So study 1 and study 2 have treatment 1 and treatment 2. They both have control groups. And to be super simple, you're able to compare treatment 1 to treatment 2. And then if you could complete the sentence.
Yeah, as long as the control groups are similar. And if you get control groups that are very, very different, that I'm calling control 1 and you're calling control 1, but I'm using the ultrasound and you're using heat, then we're introducing a lot of heterogeneity into the comparison, indirect comparison. So
And
the
then
more
you're,
comparable the two control group,
yeah,
that
And-
type
and
of
you're
control group is
pooling
for the
those.
study, the better. Yeah.
if they're comparable, you're pooling them.
What's that?
If they're comparable, you're pooling them.
Yes. Yeah.
So, so that means you're kind of turning them into one study conceptually.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't mean this, but the line from control to treatment 2 is shorter than the line from control to treatment 1. Which, just eyeballing it, if the effect size, well, anyway, so saying it in decent terms, if the effect size in study 1 was 2 standard deviations and the effect size in study 2 was half a standard deviation, then you could compare the two. That study 1 was a bunch better.
The arrows here don't mean a vector of effectiveness. They're just
Yeah.
just a convenience liberty I took to show the structure, the conceptual structure of it.
So I think that B helped me on this, that you pool the control groups. It's seen as one study, and then you can compare the effect size between treatment 1 and treatment 2.
Yeah.
And then slide 10 extends it.
Yeah, extended the model. Yeah. It's if I just to throw a wrench in it, now that you get it, the control groups are not going to be comparable. They're going to be a random effect from the studies. You know, a study done in Alaska is different than a study done in Alabama because the subjects are different, the recruitment's different, the humidity is different. Who knows? So we consider the studies a random effect in these models, and we provide for that, the code for that. The control 1, some similarities, but we're gonna hedge our bets by making study 1 and 2 random effects, and then study 2 and study 3 for treatment 2. Same. As they say in Malaysia, same. And you know, the tighter the model is, in other words, the more similar the treatments, the better I classify the control groups, the better I look at the nuances of the treatment groups. SMT is not just SMT, you know, it's osteopaths, medical doctors, naturopaths, chiropractors and physical therapists all do it. And I'm looking at it as if they all do the same thing. But that's not true. If I could somehow make a distinction about that, in fact, I've got a model set up to compare them, which I did. And I actually forget the results, but because they tend to, chiropractors tend to say, well, we manipulate everybody, and so we're better because we have more practice. And so I just wanted to test that little theory. But
So I'm intrigued by the control groups and the difference in control group. So let's say that control group 1 is they don't get anything at all. And the control group for study 1, they don't get anything. The control group for study 2, they get an equivalent amount of attention on something. The control group for study 3, the way you've got the arrows going, are study 3 and study 4, do they use the same control group with 2 arms of treatment?
you know, I don't know what the top arrow really shouldn't be there, I guess.
So for my own making this up as I go along, study 3 may have a control group with attention and math education, which has nothing to do with the outcome. And study 4 may have a control group with no attention and math education, or most anything.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you mean to, but has anyone done, I don't know if you mean to, but there's a marvelous amount of information here on control groups.
Exactly. I became fascinated with, and actually, Mei Kwong is somewhat of an expert in attention placebo, as I recall.
It's not expert, but I'm very interested in that. I did my dissertation on that. But the thing is, attention placebo can be anything. So
Yeah.
Well,
I think I believe that research is bungled because we don't make good distinctions about the control groups.
Yeah.
There's dozens of kinds of control groups that I've seen now because I had to read 97 studies about this. And, it's a point of comparison. It's supposedly withholding the effect of treatment. And unfortunately, if we looked at the control group as something that might achieve significant differences over time, I think we'd be better off than just saying, well, there's no difference between the treatment and the control group, because they both improved.
Yeah, and actually our language is very important here, because sometimes the term control group is reserved for something that's randomly selected and has no intervention to speak of, and anything else is a comparison group.
Yeah.
Because I'm with you, there's all kinds of controls.
Yeah. And just
So
sorry, Mindy, go ahead.
so I found a Cochrane review that is probably not that I don't much like. I'm not sure that it is really applicable. but they did something in 2004 to look at placebo interventions. So somebody has tried.
Yeah.
And,
Um,
and I know that there was one set of researches that spun everybody's head at Memorial Sloan Kettering because they had a measure of how well you did the placebo regimen and the intervention regimen, and they found out the personality characteristic of compliance, or that's not the right term for that characteristic, but the notion that you really did what you were told to do, that it overrode the effect of the medication.
Mhm.
It was more effective than either the placebo or the medication.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
somebody help
go
my
for-
little
go-
senior brain. What is that personality characteristic called?
conscientiousness.
Yes, that's it.
Betty Glisky talked about in the hallway, so I'm not sure how firm these results are. She came and presented, she and her student presented at EGAT, I think 3 years ago, about the adorable, and I've used this word in a superlative, graduate student provided the control group condition, and the undergraduates provided the treatment condition. And it sounded like the elderly people preferred talking to the adorable graduate student as opposed to the students.
Yeah.
So this is in the, so I'm saying elderly was 65 and above, really old. The people in the control group didn't realize that they were in the control group because they got to talk to the almost PhD student who was highly trained and wonderful. May we have a packet of those on hand at all times to destroy our studies.
Mm.
So maybe there have been hundreds of articles on the differences between control groups and the aspects of treatment that weren't meant to be effective have ended up changing the placebo, or not. Maybe there are so many articles out there on placebos that I've never heard of, but I have a hunch no.
Yeah.
And I really like John Jamat's approach, which was to control for attention and intervention. He would have 2 treatment arms, but they would be on totally different things. And then they would get measurement on both of those things.
Mm.
And so it was pretty convincing if, say, the mathematics treatment resulted in higher math scores, but not higher HIV knowledge scores, where the HIV intervention, you get the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had thought that M.H. Clark invented that, which she did not, and she never would have said that she did.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the name for that? And it's probably the most elegant design that I know of. And it's somebody's assignment for next week.
Okay, I know that John Jamat used it, and so I could look at one of his articles and see. And I also like the random invitation design because that controls for selection effects.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, you sent the paper. Thanks, Mandy, for sending that around.
The link to the placebo,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure that it is applicable. Um,
Oh,
I'm, there may, or it seems to me that that you have the data to do a rather elegant placebo article. As
I
long as you have nothing else to do.
well, you know that I want to also mention that a lot of the Cochrane and other kind of evidence syntheses, meta-analysis, so on, throw out a number of studies because they don't meet certain criteria. And I've come to believe, and this is quite a stretch really for us, trained as we are, but that there's something called precision in it's the reciprocal of the variance of each treatment arm. And if we consider precision as a covariate, then bad studies, weren't randomized or whatever, will show up with more variability and maybe lower precision. But I've got to test that out because, as I just said, that I thought if subjects are not randomized, they're probably all alike, and or maybe, and the variance won't be very much. Precision will be high. But I have study quality built into this, and I'm going to correlate that with precision to see how they relate. Because it bothers me that people throw out studies because I guess that's the Bayesian in me that says, oh, wait a minute, you can't throw out data. You could weight
Well,
it. Yeah.
So I'm thinking about, you have a pilot of 4 cases to see if your drug works.
Yeah.
Whatever the drug is. And then you do an open label study, and you come up with a really nice big effect size because everybody knows they're getting the treatment. And then things go badly when you randomize and they don't know. So I'm thinking anything open label and below is iffy. When you said you weren't so sure about including them,
No.
Oh,
and I'm specifically talking about fish oil. And a very brave person with a lot of integrity abandoned fish oil because once it went to randomized, there was no effect.
Hadn't heard that.
Uh,
that's almost like it's the wrong term, sensitivity analysis. Like, do the results hold if I throw in the kitchen sink? Or do they only hold when I have these kind of criteria? And then you always get into the other issue about where are you in the research process, and are you looking at external and ecological validity? So it worked just fine when it was being done in the lab at U of A, but Mindy and I had something going on about this, but out on the street, women hated that the pill was purple, right? Because they thought it was really weird and unusual, and they didn't want to take it. Remember that, Mindy?
yeah, it was
Prilosec?
no, it's been a decade and it hasn't been published, and people still keep getting huge amounts of money to do the research because he
Yeah.
never published a study.
Yeah. And what it was a smoking cessation aid during pregnancy. And women were said, oh, we know what smoking does to pregnancy, but we have no idea what this weird looking pill does.
Oh,
So the whole thing failed because women were not compliant or adherent or whatever word we're using now.
yeah, right.
Yeah, they were not adherent.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so all that backstory stuff is really important.
interesting. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and we were trying to get him to publish on the fact that it was very important to have acceptability of both the placebo and the treatment pills be equivalent before you even started the study. But we couldn't get him to publish on that, right?
Correct. And I think we had like 3 tries, and at some point he may be not invested in, he only wanted it in a particular one of 2 journals.
That's right. And he only wanted it for a medical outcome, not for this social psychological outcome.
And the journals that he had picked had a limit of like 3,000 words, and it's kind of hard to get much of anything into 3,000 words.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
But it was important.
yeah, it was critical. And then the fish oil study, it turned out that the placebo was darned good. And I believe she published the placebo is, we should use this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was supportive psychotherapy as
Yeah.
opposed to
And
other.
the Memorial Sloan Kettering study was about cholesterol reduction, where conscientiousness trumped medication. Probably because people did other stuff.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
say.
Interesting. Yeah, I found an article in Science when I was in Malaysia, same science journal, but about placebos are not a matter of belief. I could send that around because it was really interesting. If you don't believe something works, it doesn't matter. It still has a placebo effect. We assume that it goes through the mind and we have all this cogitation and going on. I'll send that around because
So the only thing I've got going next week is B has a presentation at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
That I'm going to, and we could talk about anything between 3:30 and 5, or we could all go to B's presentation at 6.
where's B's plus presentation?
It's online and it's very, very different. It's Roots and Roads is a community hospice foundation. And they're giving a series on grief. And this is about music at end of life and during bereavement. And there are 4 of us, a music therapist, a music thanatologist, myself, I'm a healthcare musician and a therapeutic musician. And the title is taken from Hans Christian Andersen, which is When Words Fail, Music Speaks. Because a lot of cultures don't know how to handle death and bereavement. It's free. It's online and it's free. Will
it be recorded?
Yes, it will. And it will be available on their website. And those people who sign up are going to get they're going to get a resource guide, which has some books and articles on the brain and music. Evidently, music lights up a lot more parts of the brain than language.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the vagus nerve is attached to the inside of the eardrum, and it's called the vagus nerve because it goes everywhere.
Right, the wanderer.
Yeah, the wanderer. So one individual's going to talk about mind, one's going to talk about body, and I'm going to talk about spirit.
Mm.
Well-
I will be in California for my nephew's graduation, so I will not be able to attend.
Yeah, but it will be recorded and it'll be on there, and I'd be glad to send you the resources, but it's a very different kind of presentation.
Yeah, please,
Yeah,
send
please.
send the link around.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, could you're gonna send the link, right?
I'll send the link to Mindy, and Mindy can send it out.
Okay, all right, thank you.
It's under EOL Education on the Roots and Roads website.
All right,
So since we for sure have B and Kwong not here next week, I'm recommending that we simply, and I should probably stop recording.
Okay,
Oh, you know what I could do? I could put this in the chat in 2 seconds.
Okay.
good.
That's 3 seconds now.
Hold on, I just did Control C. I just did Control C. Now I got to get back to us. I did, and now I'm in chat, and now I'm going to say everyone. And here we go. And I especially paste. Okay, and now I hit send. So 10 seconds.
Well,
And I want to especially thank AJ, because my article on veterans and music got accepted into a journal called Military Medicine.
oh,
And he helped me get through the IRB with that.
oh,
Oh, wow.
good.
thank you, AJ.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm having trouble. I clicked your link, but I can't download this.
Right. It's a website.
It's a website, and you can register there.
If to register to attend.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, you
yeah.
have to register?
Just
Okay.
email the thing. I don't want to register anywhere.
Yeah, but it'll be recorded and on there 2 weeks after the presentation.
No,
Oh.
no. I mean the article you want us to read. Can you just download it yourself and give us the article?
The resource, I guess.
Yeah, the resources. Yeah, I could just send Mindy the resources and she
Yeah.
can.
I'm tired of registering. Everywhere you go, it's always 20 questions. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I'm with you,
Yes.
AJ.
So I can send you the resources, and if you're interested in hearing what people present, then you could just go to the website and it will be recorded and on there.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks, B.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Mindy, I'll send you the resources right after this.
All right, every time I post it to my Facebook page, all the people in Idaho give me hugs.
Yeah, and I do have to say,